a child, mwambia hey, na huyo mtoto ametulia. Just start a story from nowhere. Start a story from hapo kanakaa kazi. Yao kwanza ukichukulia insurance. Utahakikisha kamesoma kabisa. Now, your relationship with your God. The next is your relationship with your immediate family. Your relationship with your immediate family. This is important. This is mandatory. My father tells me, I get a lot of wisdom from him. He tells me, Peter, the day you wake up and you're not in good terms with your wife, don't leave the house. You had better sleep the whole of that. How many of us are married? See, we are sure married. How many of you have you've realized every time you have a quarrel with your husband in the morning, and then you go to the office or you go out, everybody seems to have the bad characteristics of your husband. Is it true? I want to see a gentleman who is married. Let me see. Ni kweli. Ule mtu mnakutana na yeye, kwanza akuwe mama sasa, alete. Si ni ile shida nimeacha ni wapi? Now be intentional about that relationship. I tell my wife, you know, by the time I'm leaving the house, if you do not bless me, then I will go out and not succeed. So you have to be intentional. What is the relationship with your children? And when you are at it, what do you talk about your spouse? No, ulimchagua. Ulimchagua akiwa mbaya. How do you respect? Again, with your children. Some of us tunaguruma ukiingia kwa nyumba, watoto wananyamaza. Nurture that relationship. The third relationship that you need to nurture very keenly is the relationship with your employer. I'll put in there, you cannot curse the cow that you milk from. You cannot curse the cow that you milk from. Wachana hawa. Hii kampuni wachana nao, ni kututumia tu wanatutumia. You know, if you are being used, you would be so resourceful, you would be having your own organization like this one. Is it true? So right now, where you are, be a resource in that organization. Be so important in this organization that the organization cannot mention bank assurance and your name does not come up. One of the things I chose is that I will not be a mediocre performer in anything that they intend to go into. Let's say insurance is interesting because it's figures. If I work, I work. It's not like HR or marketing. Yeah? HR is, how is HR evaluated? I don't even know. Is it by the number of people they employ, they fire, or what? But for you, you are evaluated based on figures. It doesn't matter. Hannah might not like you. I'm sure she doesn't hate anybody here. She's even tuned you to hate anybody, unless she has a problem. But do you know, even though she did not like you, she cannot influence your performance. Because your performance is based on figures. So be intentional about the relationship with your employer, with the company that you work for. Please, I said you cannot curse the cow that you milk from. What do you go out there talking about this organization? No wonder some of us, if we ask you, what did you do the whole of last year with the salary that you got, you cannot account for it. Because you already cast the income that is coming from this organization. Am I making sense? When I preach too much, you tell me stop. So be intentional about the relationship with your employer. The other thing that you have to be deliberate about is the relationship with your colleagues. And I'll spend a little bit more time here. You guys are in bank assurance. I like what, remind me your name. Sorry? Ruth Karanja. She said, can you be a servant in your branch? Can you be a servant in your branch? Can you make sure you're in good books with the guys in credit, with the guys in operations, with your branch manager, with everybody? Why? They know who has the big money. They can refer to one client. Now your client will meet target yako ya 2023. But some of us, the wisdom to respect authority we don't have. Unfortunately, in this generation, hata unaona hiyo para yake sasa hiyo watu wako na para kama hiyo wako ushauri karao wanalipa. And it's the same person you expect to bless you with business. It's the same person who will write your, what are they called at the end of the year? Your appraisals. The person you've been talking about is the person who will do your appraisals. The other day I asked somebody, did you notice something interesting late last year? When Bill Gates came, he went to Machakos, isn't it? How was he dressed? Yeah?
Jeans.
Yeah? He was casual in a jeans and a t-shirt. What happened the following day? Who was he meeting?
President.
Yeah?
President.
He was meeting the president, isn't it?
Yeah.
How was he dressed?
A suit.
In a suit and
Tie.
Some of us, the grace to respect the people who we answer to, we don't have. That's why we remain at your level. Sisi atuambiangwi, kwanza hata tulikuwa last year. Atuambiangwi. This generation now. Then you want me to finish, and then at the end of the day, I'm told, as you clear from the organization, you need to go to marketing. And I come to his office. I tell him, excuse me sir, I'm leaving the organization, kindly sign for me. Who si ndio uliita sijui nini mkiwa end of year party? This is what you've been talking bad about. Now you are here telling, I've gotten a job somewhere else. I've actually gotten a job with the World Bank. And for him to clear you, he has to put into account your dealings in that organization. I'll give you a real life example. At one time I was, as I was a unit manager, I recruited a gentleman who was diligent, fresh from JQuat. He had done actuarial science. I told him, come and sell insurance. Be diligent in doing this. And that gentleman was diligent. And at the same time I recruited a gentleman who we had known each other somewhat. This guy from JQuat came and worked. This other guy came in and after training disappeared. Again, what did he go and write on his CV? I have worked with company X, which I worked with for about 10 plus years. Then by good luck, both of them get a job. One of them gets a job from Cooperative Bank, Bank Assurance. The other one gets a job from KCB, Bank Assurance. And the gentleman who was from JQuat comes to me and tells me, Peter, now we discussed about this, what my interest is, told you got my blessings. I replied to an email that the employer had sent me. This other guy came and told me, hey, chief, nimepata job. Ambia, and mazi, watu wanataka recommendation. Did you say recommendation? Okay. Asked him, what do you want me to write on that recommendation? I told him, you are better off getting that job. Because if I write my recommendation on that letter, they will revoke even the fact that I told you for interview. They will strike your name off the people they interest. The guy thought I was joking. I told him, no. There was one thing that you cannot do. I cannot compromise my integrity. You've gotten a job now. You want me to come to your level now and plead to you and play to your music. Unfortunately, I cannot. Mr. Kazi, kaniambia wa cousin called me, unajua tutanunua mbuzi. Ambia boss. Now, those kind of things, I cannot put my integrity on the line because of something very. And you want to know a joke? That's how the guy lost a job opportunity at Cooperative Bank. Bank Assurance. The other gentleman today is a middle-level guy in Bank Assurance in KCB. Using that as a real-life example. So what are you doing with that position? I like to say, how many of us prayed? How many of us prayed for the current job that we have? Okay. Let me give you a secret. The work of God's grace is to get you located. The work of God's grace is to get you located. The function of staying on location is your hard work and your integrity. That is the fourth relationship that you need to be very intentional about. We talked about a relationship with your God, with your family, with your organization, and with your colleagues, and in that respect, your life managers. Respect each other. Respect each other. Respect each other's space. And as we talk about respect, respect each other's personal lives. I like to say, I don't know whether this will go down the wrong way. Respect each other's space. Your colleagues. Have clearly defined lines of where relationships get to. We know some years back, I'm sure Mr. Njadha may remember this. There's a bank that had a very big natural exit from this world of employees to HIV. Remember that story? Actually, 2 banks. Respect each other in this place. Why you do not want to come to the office and feel how you feel when you're walking into it. It's called walk of shame. Maintain those boundaries. Maintain proper relationships in the office. Why is that? In this time and age, you cannot afford to risk your future. Life is delicate. Life is. It's King Hezekiah who is asking God to just add him. And he reminds him, just God, if I have done something good in my entire life. Now, who are you to think about the fact that you can joke around with your? Anyway, let's put that discussion at that. But that is important because that adds to the kind of relationships that you have in the office. Now, we talked about how many of those things had money, and that becomes important that we put it at that. So, why is then this opportunity that you have very important? And I want to address this based on what our GM told us when he started talking. He talked about, and it's trendy today in Kenya, to talk about side hustles. I may not have time to go through the entire principle. We can take this off into another meeting. But there is a principle called the principle of the water source. Can you write that down? The principle of the water source. And I've alluded to it when I talked about what's the value of your job in this organization. You value this organization. Are you deliberate about being the best? I like to say this. We have a saying in Kikuyu, probably Mr. Njadha, you would help me interpret it in English. Mwanawe kiodaga mudhambia.
helped by my good brother here, but he says that a child of good deeds does not lack somebody to support him or her.
Now, that relates to what we are going to talk about in relation to the principle of the water source. Now, I'll talk about each and every subsequent government since independence in this country. We've always had a discussion around the Mau. Anybody here who comes from the area around the Mau forest? Anybody? Okay. Anybody who comes from Mia forest? Which one? Mount Kenya, Which other one? Up there, Karula. Now, you will realize that each and every government since independence has been a thorn in the flesh. The issue of our forests. And why has it been an issue? Because those forests are a water source in this country. Now, I want to tell you there's something called carbon harvesting.
Yeah.
One country, for example, like Congo, is paid from the UN's office to maintain their forest cover. I don't know what you get, whether you get the drill of where I'm heading to. But I want to say, many of us have side hustles, and I not want to say because your bosses are here. But you call it a side hustle simply because it is a side hustle. Simply because it cannot feed you by itself. But very many of us make a mistake of stealing from our employer and giving to our side hustle. What the GM talked about, unakuja, unaingia ofisi. Anybody from Four Ways branch? I walk into many times there. Naingia, clocking, naweka ka jacket kama India serikali, naitwaje? Which civil servant? Probably mtu wa lands, wa Ministry of Lands, wa records. Naweka koti na unatoka. You go to your own things. Let me tell you one thing that happens. Immediately you start doing that, you have insulted the grace that got you that job. That's the first consequence. That is why you will never score a 3.5. That is why you will score a 2.5 and below. And will be put on PIP. The second thing is that this is the job that fits you. This is the job that if you are not to get that income from that house in Upper Hill, you will not be able to push through your month. True? Is it true?
True.
So what proportion of time must you be deliberate about giving this side hustle and your core business? Your contract talks about the number of hours you put in per day into your job. Please be honest. Put those hours into your job. I tell people will go to hell for very small things. Very small? Not murdering. Utajipata tu pale kwa line inasonga, next. Usikie Mr. Jaza pale ameitwa, ameambiwa, hebu tupatie hiyo file ya Equity. Wewe ulikuwa umepewa kazi hivi, ulikuwa unaingia 7:30 AM, very good. Lakini you used to leave at 10:30, go do your personal business and come back at 3:30. Ati jamaa kema ulikuwa na hardware. Unaambiwa because of the sin of lack of integrity, there is I don't know, I think because of having children, I watch a lot of cartoons. And the image of the devil is somebody red burning with the hot nini burning ile three forks like this, wanakushika hivi anakuingia. Now, respect your core business. Do not steal time from the employer. Why it is important is because of the few reasons that I will outline here. Why it is very important to actually commit to that job, to this job that you have is these 4 or 5 reasons. Number 1, your current job gives you the ability to grow. See what I'm not promoting internally. Now, how will you ever have somebody noticing that you are a child who is worth being washed if you have no results to show? So be deliberate about the effort that you put in. I like to say, I would better hire a successful watchman for a managerial position than somebody who has never succeeded in it. Because they have a track record of performance. Now for you, if we go back to your CV, can anybody vouch for you? One of the things that has opened a lot of doors for me in corporate is that when I left one of the organizations, I believe it is still a sister company of Equity. When I left Britam as the senior team leader, I was given a beautiful recommendation letter. That door I have gone with it to very many organizations, and it has opened doors for me. Can you go to Mr. Jana and tell him, please give me a recommendation? Atakuangalia kuulize wewe. Wewe. Si mnatumianga biometrics kuingia kazini? Ama ni there's biometrics? Cards. So if that card is run, does it even show you are diligent around the time that you come into work? If my time is up. Does it show you are diligent? I'm reminded about what our GM said here about time. And for the people who came in late, let me tell you something. The only way I know you respect me before I know you is how you treat my time. I can give you 1,000 shillings. I can buy you a new suit. I can give you a car. And I can replace those things. The only thing I can never replace if I gave you is time. The only thing I can never replace upon me advancing it to you is my time. So respect people's time. Respect people's time. So the ability to grow is number 1. Why you need to protect this water source that you have at Equity is the ability to grow. How do you grow in the organization? Work, your performance is reviewed, you're promoted, you get salary increment, and somebody asked about how do we spend this other 8 hours. When you leave work, where do you go to? How many of us drive to work? Okay, he might know he moves around. But I'll tell you, let's say in Nairobi you must not drive. Also in your job that is mainly 8 to 5. You may need to drive because then you are field people. But it is when you are actually going to the field honestly. I was showing Mercy this morning a certificate that I've gotten for a course that I'm doing. And I have actually studied that course in the morning when I'm coming to town. So when you say you don't have time, it depends with what you don't have time for. It also depends with what you like listening to. How much does Menyakageni earn? Eh? How much does Menyakageni earn? Yeah? Yeah? Around 2 million, isn't it? How much do you earn? Do you know stock ya Menyakageni ni nini? Do you know his stock is what? Is you. When he goes to any negotiation table, he says, I have averagely 70% of Nairobians listening to me every morning. He will get a job, get 3 million. And you are busy listening to him. Na shule ni next week, by the way. Shule ni next week, still. Now, ability to grow. I'm sure you have loan facilities for staff at very good rates. You have mortgage facility for staffs at very good rates. When will you ever qualify for these things? Because you go. Again, even when you get a good offering, you need to be careful when to step out. Some of us, I'll tell you, and Mr. Njanga knows this, there's an interview that you will sit and look at somebody's CV. He's good, very good. But the number of jobs he has changed in the last 3 years. This is a wasted resource. How much has Equity invested to get you to where you are in terms of trading? So do you think Equity wants to spend money every so often? It wants you to grow. The second aspect that is important, it is the hand that feeds you. It is the hand that feeds you. Now, I want to say I'm one of those people who develops ideas very fast. If you go to business registry, I think I've registered many businesses. Some of them even never operationalized. Some of them I even see certificates when my wife is arranging things there and tell me, ilikuwa ya nini? Yeah. Ilikuwa nimenunua gari fulani and I thought it was a good car and I thought I would be actually doing hotel transfers. It's never happened. Now, what is this hand that feeds you? It is your employer. You may be having your side hustle, but your water source is your employer. And if you feel that your business has grown to a level where you now need to concentrate on it fully, I'll give you a free tip. Please keep your income from Equity for 6 months in the bank without touching. At the end of the 7th month, please come to Mr. Njanga with a resignation. That way you know you can live without this income. But before you get to that point, you need this income deliberately and desperately. So you have to be keen about protecting that income. Again, is the ability, number 3, is the ability to build goodwill. The ability to build goodwill. What do I mean when I say that? You must build goodwill with an organization. You must build goodwill with your employer. You must build goodwill that when you go out there, you actually become an insurance person. You've actually become a career banker because you had the experience at this organization. You have to be deliberate about that. You have to be keen and sober and knowing that whatever I'm getting here is also an aspect that I can go out there and somebody says, was it not for the fact that you worked with Equity, would not have hired you? So it becomes important that you build goodwill. Goodwill is built by how you treat or you interact with your colleagues, with how you interact with your line managers. Some of us, unfortunately, emotionally, ati kuna ile dress huyo madam amevaa leo amekorofishana na bwanake.